so much of the picture, and it's so much of, I think, what drives me, and it's living in alignment. So the phrase that I always use is that we're
Mhm.
creating a life by design, not by
Mhm.
default.
Welcome to the Relational Parenting Podcast. I'm Jennifer Hayes, a parent coach and 20-year childcare veteran. Each week, I sit down with my own father, Rick Hayes, and discuss the complicated issues that parents face today, as well as some of the oldest questions in the book. From the latest research and the framework of my relational parenting method, we offer thought-provoking solutions to your deepest parenting struggles. Added bonuses include intergenerational wounding discussions and guest childcare experts. We will also start taking your parenting questions in episode 5, so be sure to comment with your biggest questions or email me directly at jenny@jennyb.co. Let's get started. Amy Kuphal is a fitness business owner turned digital entrepreneurship coach who specializes in helping heart-centered entrepreneurs build businesses that give them time, financial, and location freedom while making a positive impact on the clients they serve. Outside of working with her coaching clients, Amy is a homeschooling mom to her 11-year-old daughter, an avid traveler, and a coffee fanatic. Hello, Amy. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we are here with Amy Kuphal this week. She is a mom. She is a fitness trainer, right? And you are also now a digital entrepreneur coach, helping other women create online businesses. And and so I want to start with parenting. I want to start with, you have a very unique parenting journey that I think will benefit so many of our listeners. So I would love for you to share with us the journey that got you on this path to entrepreneurship in the first place.
That sounds good. Thank you again for having me on. Yes. So parenting journey, I think like most of my life takes its turns, and it's an interesting journey. I had my daughter at 25. So beautiful, had my wonderful daughter, started out as a single parent, been a single parent ever since. And so, of course, as a single parent, that comes with like a lot of responsibilities. Your life is super busy, all of these things. So, at the point that I had her, actually, I was working as a personal trainer. And this is pre-COVID. So, as a 20 something personal trainer, I had a beautiful schedule of 8 to 5 in the morning and then about 5 to 8 p.m. at night. And when you're young and you're 20 something and you have no one that you're
Right.
responsible for, that completely works.
Right.
Now I have this daughter that I'm responsible for. It was able to work for a little bit because I was with her in the middle of the day, and then I could just work. She was with my parents for the morning and the evenings when I would do my personal training. But then as she started to get 3, 4 years old, I went, oh my gosh, like there's no way. And the only education that I had known was public education.
Mm-hmm.
So in my head at this point, I said, okay, I'm working 5 to 8 in the morning, 5 to 8 at night, and my daughter's going to be in school from 8 to 3. I'm never going to see her if this is the career path that I'm on. And as devastating as it was to leave personal training, because it was definitely a profession that I felt fulfilled in, my biggest role at that point, of course, all of us know the second you have a kid, the biggest role at that point is your child.
Is mom.
So
Yeah.
my degree is in education, and specifically health and fitness education. So I decided to go back to education, as reluctantly as that was. I went back to education and got a job. I was teaching for 8 years in public ed just in order to match her schedule. During that time, I don't know how too much we want to get into it, but I was that high school student that was like a 4.0, like stayed up till 3 a.m. writing papers and like full tears, just to get up at 5 to do it all again. And not because I cared about the material, more because this internal pressure, this obligation, and I was making myself so stressed, and it really was not a healthy time for me. And so I knew my perspective as a student, and it was not great. Yeah. And then now seeing it from the teacher role, I saw another level of intensity that I knew I didn't want for my own daughter.
Yeah.
And I didn't want her to experience all of the things that I did. And if there's time for a quick story here around that, is that one
Yeah,
of the things that,
absolutely.
and
We've
again,
got
I didn't,
time. We've got
plenty
time.
of time.
So, yeah.
That sounds good. One of the pivotal moments that happened to me when I was 16, and I didn't realize at the time that it was such a pivotal moment, but reflecting on it as an adult, I now do, is that, as I mentioned, I would be a perfectionist to the extreme. If the teacher said this many word paper, that's how many I had or more.
Hmm.
And just felt like I was constantly trying to keep up for an
Would
end
you
goal
say
that I,
people please?
yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for an end goal that,
Achieving to please the adults and get the reward.
yes, and
Yeah.
and this feeling that I had to be that.
Yeah.
And at the age of 16, I ended up getting diagnosed with melanoma. And I ended up having to spend a week in the hospital. I went through surgery. They almost had to skin graft. I was in a wheelchair afterwards. And everyone around me was like, while I was in the hospital, I went into Dana-Farber. And the whole time they were like, oh my gosh, you must be devastated. You must be so scared. You must be upset. The only thing I felt during that entire week was relief, because it was the
Mm.
only time in my life that no teacher was shoving work at me. I didn't have to
Mm-hmm.
keep my room clean.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And for me, that, you'd think, as you're 16, I guess nothing's that much of a wake up call, but you would think that would be a wake up call. But it wasn't until I reflected on it as an adult, because after that week, I got right
Right.
back to what I was doing.
Right.
Reflecting on it as an adult, I said, oh my God, it took a cancer diagnosis for me to feel like I had permission to take a break.
Yeah.
It was the groundwork for a realization, for
Yeah.
a moment, right? It was the
Yeah.
universe laying the groundwork for that.
100%. And I just knew I didn't want that for my daughter. I knew I didn't want her to have that kind of external pressure to perform
Hmm.
Mm.
for material that she was probably going to forget later anyways, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
don't use it, you lose it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You used the word obligation. It wasn't an internal goal oriented. I'm going to do this thing. It was like I have to do this for some reason. So that's much less
To be
pleasant.
worthy, to get the grade, to make the people
Yeah.
in my life, to make my adults happy because they've told
Yeah.
me this is the box I have
Yes.
to check in order to be successful, to get into college, to get a job, all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yep.
Yeah. We
Yeah. So
share our story. I don't think we touched on this when we had our phone call. Because I don't think you had ever told me your cancer story. I had cancer. I was also 4.0 valedictorian, staying up, studying, doing the things like to get the grades, to please the people, thinking that was the only way to be successful in my life. And I was also diagnosed with cancer. I was 17.
17. Yeah.
wow. So, yeah.
And when you say, when I was going through it, it didn't faze me. And in fact, it was borderline felt good because
Relief.
Yeah. Yes.
you were completely taken care of. You were completely seen and held and loved exactly as you were, the mess that you were, etc. And you finally got a break.
Yeah.
And then later on, reflecting on it, I personally had a complete fucking meltdown. But at the time I was going through it, I was invincible, and cancer, what? Like nothing can kill me. Right. And then you reflect later and
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I could have died, or like,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
could have been
And you
so
know
much
what?
worse.
Same. There was no, but again, we chatted briefly prior to recording this, but there, at least for me, was a sense of knowing that I was going to be fine.
Yeah.
There was not,
Huh.
there was not any question in and my parents were crying. Of course, they're
Yeah.
devastated. Their child just got diagnosed with melanoma. And not only that, they had said, had you not come in when you did, if you had come in 2 weeks later, we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
So it was, and so they were very upset because, it's their child. The entire time there was a knowing that I was going to be fine. There was never a question.
Ditto. I never thought that I was
Yeah.
like, treatment
Was that
sucked.
the youth?
Surgery sucked.
Was that the obliviousness of youth, the invulnerability, or was looking back on it, was that more of a knowing in your heart kind
I
of
think it was
thing.
a
It
knowing. I
certainly,
mean, I shouldn't even say I think it was a knowing. To get into the background of that a little bit is from a very young age, I've always, and I just recently found out there's a word for it. It's called claircognizant. Like,
Yeah.
found this out last week. I had
So
never heard
yeah,
this word before in my life.
instead of
So it's a thing.
clairvoyant,
And
it's
so from,
claircognizant. Yeah.
yes, yes. And I had just recently heard this word. And from a very young age, have had experiences leading up to things that would have been devastating news, had experiences leading up to them to allow me to have a knowing once that moment arrived. And essentially, what had happened prior to my cancer diagnosis at age 16, for the month prior to having that diagnosis, I started having dreams. Like at night, I would have these dreams and I would be doing completely normal things in my dream. So in my dream, I'm almost watching myself and I'm watching myself wash the dishes. But as I'm watching the dishes, there was just this knowing that I had cancer. I'm like, okay. So, and every night, no matter what I was dreaming, this dream also had this knowing that I had cancer. Now,
Hmm.
in my awake life, I started noticing Relay for Life t-shirts everywhere and just like things
Mm.
just lighting up in my
hmm,
day-to-day life. And I'm like, this is weird, weird. And started to get to the point over that month that said, I'm going to get cancer. Like I'm getting all of these signs like, wake up, Amy, here they are, here they are. So at this point, I'm like, do I go to the doctor and say, oh, I think I might have cancer?
Right.
And they'd
You're
be like
16.
what?
You're
Like
like
leukemia?
no one's gonna
yeah.
listen
Like
to me.
what
Like,
kind? Okay.
yeah,
What signs do you have? And nothing, nothing, nothing. I had no evidence to show
yeah,
them outside
Exactly.
this knowing. So I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't say anything to my parents. I didn't say anything to the doctors because I'm like, I don't want to look like a Looney Tunes here. They're going to be like, how? And I'm not going to know. I got out of the shower one day. I was drying off and I was drying off with a towel, drying off my leg. And I saw what I thought was still a speck of dirt on my ankle. And I'm like, how did that? I just like got out of the shower. So I went to wipe it off and it was a dark black freckle. And in that moment I went,
um,
ha ha, that's it. That's the cancer that I've been knowing for a month.
yeah,
And
On
it's
your
almost like,
ankle.
yes, it was on my left ankle. And I'm like, there we go. Finally, the physical proof
yeah,
has shown up for something that I've already known.
Hmm.
yeah.
So we had looked up a dermatologist and I went to her and I said, okay, here's the thing. I didn't tell the whole backstory, but I'm like, here's the thing. I have this spot on my ankle. I want to get it taken off. I think it's probably cancer. She did nothing short of laughing, patting me on the head and saying, no, 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 honey, like you're 16. Like that happens when you're older. Like
Yeah.
head
Yeah.
on home.
You're not in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Nope. And she goes, the borders look clean. You're good. And I went home, but I could not shake it. So I went to my mom and I said, we need to go over her head. We went over her head. I ended up finding a surgeon. They took it out. And that's the surgeon that said, after the biopsy came back, had you waited 2 weeks later, this would be a different conversation. It was going deep, not wide. We needed a skin graft. So it's this knowing that I think's been ever present for
Yeah.
as long as I can remember.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't like this huge thing you'd been ignoring for 5
No,
years or anything. It was just a
it was
little
not
speck.
there the day before. And it was there when I got out of the shower.
And by the time it was there, the guy was like 2 weeks more, and this would be different. Wow.
Yeah. Just because they said it was spreading so rapidly, deeply,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have gone
that
into your lymph nodes.
yeah, then we would
Scary.
be looking at radiation. Yeah.
Scary.
So,
There, but for
but
the
it's trust
grace.
your gut. That's the moral of this story is like when you know something, don't ignore it. I think we all have this
Yes.
sense of
Well, we're
when
in
we're,
such a
Intuition
scientific
or gut
age.
feeling
Mhm.
or like
Yeah.
people dismiss, especially if you're a kid or a teenager, the like, oh, that's
Yes.
not what science tells us is normal, so probably not. Like you just don't know
Hmm.
anything.
Yeah.
That like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
condescension of children, and I'm not like kids make shit up all the time, especially when they're little. Like people have like kids have imaginations,
Exactly.
and I'm not saying everything that comes out of your kid's mouth is going to be a cancer diagnosis, but we dismiss people who we think, whether it's an adult or a child, we dismiss people's gut feelings and intuition simply because there's no physical evidence yet.
Yep.
Yes.
And people
And
do it to
that's,
themselves because it's done to them as children. And so they stop listening to themselves. They stop listening to their inner knowing and their intuition and their gut feelings about things. And they start people pleasing and checking boxes that other people have decided makes a good life. And then you
yeah,
turn 25 and you look around and you're like, I literally hate everything I've built. Like, what am I doing with my life?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for my daughter, right? And I
Yeah.
did, and so I think part of the way I parent for sure is parenting against that.
Yeah.
There's a place for both. The science, I can calculate the
Absolutely.
trajectory of my
Yeah.
satellite so I can hit this comet going by, millions of miles away to get
Mm-hmm.
certainty. People crave certainty. And we were just talking before about it's messy coming.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of external influences, and the rest of life is messy. Science is a way to neaten things up, not disparaging science at
Right.
all.
If it
You
weren't for
know,
Mm-mm.
science, I might not be here.
if
Right.
we're
But
gonna figure this out and be responsible, we need to be able to track this down. So you discard things that aren't reliable, but it's still there. It's not that it doesn't exist. When the
Right.
scientists tell you poo poo, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. That just means it's outside their expertise.
yes,
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that kind of leads back to too in the question you're asking of how I got to where I am parenting is that I've had this experience, and like you just touched upon, the experience of it being a child that in the setting, without ruffling too many feathers, in the school setting,
Yeah.
there's the teacher higher
We
up,
did a
and I've
whole
been there,
education
and the
series.
students,
Please ruffle feathers. Whole public
right, and the
education.
students, here we go, and the students are less than, and and they're taught to always look to that adult figure for the answer and
Yeah.
to stop taking their own voice as valid. And I knew, especially after going into teaching myself, I knew that that was not the path that I wanted for my own daughter. And that's why, so she went to public kindergarten, she went to public first grade, but ever since she was in kindergarten, even as a single parent, and it was one of those things that I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work out. How, as a single parent, can I work full time? I'm the sole income earner for my
Yeah.
house and homeschool my daughter. And who the heck is she going to be with during the day? But from the moment I enrolled her in school, I had the full intention of starting to put pieces in place to be able
Yeah.
to pull her. And that
Yeah.
ended up happening at the start of her second grade year.
That's so healthy, where it's like
Nice.
you don't get overwhelmed because it's not all there now. It's like, okay, there's a set of steps I can take here, and
Yeah.
so we'll do this. Grab a thread to start untangling things, and maybe you have to grit your teeth for a while you get all the other pieces in place.
Yes.
But I can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great attitude.
And I think things start to fall into place. I've always found this too in my own life. Things start to fall into place once you put that intention out there,
Mm-hmm.
and in ways that you wouldn't expect either. And it's after I had made the declaration in my own mind that I was going to be pulling her out and homeschooling, a couple of circumstances fell in place. One being my mom's job moved from the town that it was in to a town that was one town over from the center that I ended up sending my daughter to.
No way! Wow,
So for
that's
me,
really rearranging things. Yeah,
right. And it's just, I think, again, it comes back to that thing where the universe is working in your favor
Yes.
when you put the intention out there. So it ended up being that my
Yes.
mom was going to work at the same time that my daughter would need to get dropped off, 10 minutes away from her work. So,
Perfect.
I mean, stuff that you can't predict. So just keep
Right.
taking that step forward and things put themselves in place.
I always say that the
when you get too
universe
many
can weave I can manifest, I can picture this is where I want to be, or this is the goal, or this is what I want my life to look like. The universe will weave the circumstances together and create something better than I could have created, like if I were in charge of the whole process. Like
Yes.
the universe will weave it in a much more beautiful, like succinct way
Yeah.
much
And
and
it's
be like,
smoother
trusting.
way.
It's
Yeah,
trusting, isn't
yeah,
it? It's like
yeah,
when it's not going as quick as you want, it's trusting. Like,
yeah.
no, it's still coming together.
Yes, that's our job, right? Is to trust the process. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, that's hard.
when you notice too many coincidences strung together, it's time to wonder.
Yeah.
That's when I go,
Yeah.
I'm not the only thing at play here. Okay.
Yeah.
I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's quite a story. That's quite a story. It's and you've done this. You say you've been a single parent the whole time. I mean, that's tough finding time to work and to parent. It seems like the ideal situation is to have a couple of people raising children so that you can kind of divide labor. And there's more resources to go around, and
Yeah.
that's a particular challenge. I'm glad you're working in that space. And
I'm lucky I have a very supportive family. My parents actually live in the
good.
same town as me, and my sister lived 2 towns over until about a year ago. She actually I'm in a townhouse. No, this is great. I'm in a townhouse, and she moved in 2 doors over from me.
Oh
Oh
my
my God.
gosh.
So 2 stoops down with her 2 boys. She has twin 2-year-old boys now.
So you have a
Oh my
village.
gosh.
You're building a little
Yes.
village, right, to raise the
Yes.
child. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes. Amazing.
It
So
is. It
what
is.
is so your daughter now goes to a learning center. So it's like describe that for people, because it's not public school, but it's like some version of homeschool, but in like a group setting.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
essentially it's a unique place. And essentially what it was is of course when you go down the rabbit hole of anything, when I was starting to look at, homeschooling and unschooling Facebook groups and
Yeah.
what resources were available to me, because I knew that I could not be that traditional homeschool mom that was going to the park dates at 10 a.m. and that was
Yeah.
organizing all the activities because I had to work. That was the reality. So
Yeah.
I just started searching out what options are there. And I happened to stumble upon this amazing location that's about a half an hour from my house. And essentially, what it is it's the only way and I always say to my daughter's Callie, and I would always call it school, but then I never know quite how to call it for people that are not familiar with it because it's not a school. Essentially, what it is really it's just a drop off center. So they were ages 5 to 18. All the kids that get dropped off there are registered homeschool kids. So, as my daughter's
Okay.
parent, I'm the one that's responsible for all of the education for her. They don't do anything like that. The
Okay.
only thing that I could kind of resemble it to is like if you dropped your child off at a play date, you're
Yeah.
not going to expect the other parent to do anything. So they have how it's set up is they have 5 different staff members that they actually just call staff. They're not teachers. And it's a bizarre, especially as a former teacher, it was like so bizarre for me to see this place because I walked in for the first tour and like one of the staff members was like sitting on the couch reading a book. Like the other one was out back playing an instrument. The other one was painting. And as a former teacher, I always felt like I had to look like I was on. And
Yeah.
even if the children were independently doing their work, I had to like have a clipboard and like walk around and like
Yeah.
look like I was, I don't know, like even when they're
Supervised.
totally
Yeah.
right, even when they're totally behaved and self sufficient, you had
Yeah.
to look like you were earning your spot.
Ugh.
And here I am walking to this place and like this
The amazing
teacher, it's not
salary
even
that
teacher
they pay
staff member.
teachers.
Right. And now this guy's laying on the couch and like the other one's like working on his own artwork. And there's like 40 to 50 children just like running around like in the fields. And there's a gaga ball pit and like they're doing arts and crafts. And I'm like, what is this place?
Yeah.
But basically that's what it is. And it's just a drop-off center. And the purpose of the staff there and what they'll say is they say, we don't intervene with the children unless there's a safety issue or unless they come to us and they ask for something. So if they were to come and say, hey, there's a guitar here and you know how to play, could you teach me?
Mm,
Yeah. But otherwise they're just free to conduct their own day. So
yeah.
it's definitely
So
different.
How do
how?
they get
Okay.
their work done
Yeah.
in that?
Yeah. Accreditation is where it was the first thing that came to my mind as the
So
linear
since
scientific
Yeah,
sort.
no, right. And so many people have this question, especially like friends of mine that are in
Yeah.
the public
That sounds
school
interesting.
realm, is so they're not a school. So
Yeah.
they're not an accredited school, so that there's nothing in that sense that they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then from my own perspective with my daughter, it would be the same as if she was staying home.
Yeah.
So essentially what I did personally is she's super independent. She's kind of like me in the sense that I have to kind of like rein her back sometimes. But I
Internally
would
motivated. Yeah.
Yes, yes, which made it easier, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
But essentially all I would do for her is I gave her like a homework notebook. She would have her math, her science, her reading Monday through Friday. I would send her with her work. And I'm like, it's your responsible by Friday to have this all complete. We're going to check it over on Friday, but it's you. And I
That's
always just
great
put it as,
training right there.
yeah. And so she was
Yes.
super independent. And I always just put it under the perspective of, homeschooling is a privilege. It's
Yeah.
costing me thousands of dollars to send her to
Yeah.
this center that as a single mom is not like I had some extra money. And
Yeah.
it's costing me a lot of time to organize the materials for her. So if she
Yeah.
wasn't holding up her end of the bargain, she knew it was much easier for me to outsource that to public.
That's
Yeah.
right. You can go to school any day, sweetie
Yeah.
pie.
And then I don't have to be the one doing it. And I think she knew that.
Yeah.
She knew that. And what was great though is that she found her own rhythm, which is really cool.
Yes.
And so some weeks she would come to me, and the start of the week she'd say, Mom, you know what? I'm really looking at Friday off. I'm just going to load up on my work Monday through Thursday so I can have a chill Friday, she would say.
Yeah.
And she could organize a structure for a day. She liked to start by reading. So she would take her book out. There was a beautiful tree she would sit under, and she'll read her book under the tree, and then she'll have her snack, and then maybe come inside. So she really found her own flow, which is nice to see.
That's like idyllic.
Yes.
There's got to be a unicorn and a couple of elves in the background there,
I'm
Right?
telling you,
That's
I
great.
think everyone needs to walk into this place because I still laugh when I go there. None of the kids or staff wear shoes.
Good. I hate
It
shoes.
is so funny to me. Like,
Yeah.
it does not matter. Dead of winter, these children are just like running in like the fields, like shoeless. And so
Yeah.
I always thought it was so funny. I'm like, oh my God, like these kids, like there's like no shoes at this whole place. So then I pulled up at the end of this school year, pulled up to drop my daughter off. And so she gets out and goes. Two of the staff members, it's a husband and wife, they pull up in their little Audi. Wife gets out of the passenger seat, no shoes to start. She's not even wearing them to start. Husband gets out, no shoes. And now they're walking into work, both of them shoeless. And I'm like, oh my God. I said to my daughter, Kelly, I'm like, did they ever? I'm like, do they have shoes? And she goes, I don't think that the wife, she goes, I don't think she even brings them, Mom. She goes, the husband does, because sometimes he gets up on the roof and does some construction stuff, but they really don't wear them.
I mean,
Never
they've
seen her
proven
with them.
like
I don't think so.
they've proven, especially in small children, like babies and toddlers, when like people they're learning to walk and establishing like foot health and balance, it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
detrimental to the
Yeah.
the physical development of the
Yeah.
foot to put your kid in shoes all the
Yeah.
time. Like let them run around barefoot. And
Yep.
it's bad for adults too. Like if you're
Yeah.
not wearing good, solid, spacious, supportive shoes, like we were not meant, like my feet are still messed up from my 20s wearing heels. Like I still get
So worth
plantar
it.
fasciitis, right? And like I have to wear like special shoes now to like just be comfortable during the day because of what I did in my
Right.
20s to my feet. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
heard
no,
but no,
not
runners
I just
say
love
that
that.
too.
I love that.
I've heard runners talk about that. It's better to run
Yeah.
barefoot. If
Yeah.
only the soles of your feet were as tough as the soles of shoes sometimes, right? Once in a while,
Well, and they
you
have
want to be
those
able to,
like
when you're just out
barefoot
and around.
shoes now
Yeah.
Yeah.
where
Yep,
it's
they do.
like each toe has its own nook and like
The
it's
water shoes
supposed
looking ones.
Yeah.
to yeah
Yeah.
it's supposed to hold your foot in its natural stance, and then it feels like you don't have a shoe on, but there's something between you and the ground, so you're not like destroying your feet. But
Yep.
yeah.
These kids will
So
grow
this
up
is a
feet.
learning center.
Yeah.
This sounds like a really interesting place.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's cool that they hire staff. What I loved as well is that they hire staff with a variety of interests and skill sets. So one of the
Yeah.
staff members actually
Okay.
a working musician. So he does gigs at night and then comes there and is staff during the day. So it's cool because he just lives his life as he would if he were home. But the
Yeah.
kids get to experience, oh, he was just out in the field playing guitar. Like, that's kind of cool. Like, do you want to show me how to do that?
Yeah.
And what I loved as well, and didn't realize it prior to sending her, but as she's been there a couple of years now, is that there's so much teaching that goes on between the older kids and the younger kids. So
Yes.
Sure.
we have this little like keyboard at home. And so I came in the other day and she's playing this song. Like, I have never sent this child to piano lessons. I have never done anything like this. She's playing the song and I'm like, oh my gosh, baby, like, how did you learn how to play piano? And she goes, one of the 16-year-old kids was playing and I asked if she could show me. And we spent the day learning piano.
This
And
really
it's
is
cool.
a community. It really is.
Yeah. And that's the only rule too, which is great because we talk about, public school, she had all the rules. the only rule there is essentially don't do things that are going to be harmful or hurtful to other students. And
Yeah.
outside of that, there's not really rules.
Yeah.
And
I
and
love,
what's
like,
yeah.
sorry, that rule and the one that you said initially, where you said that they don't intervene unless there's a safety issue or the kids ask
Mhm.
for help with something.
Yeah.
That, like, I'm going to quote you on that. Like, that's going to be one of the snippets that I pull out of this episode, because that's such a foundational parenting thing that I try to teach people is kids really don't need us that much. They need us to keep them safe,
Yeah.
and maybe teach morality and kindness and empathy, but more than anything, they just need us to model it. If we
Nudge
are
here and there.
kind and empathetic
Yeah.
towards our children, they will learn that's how you treat people. That the way I'm being treated is how I'm going to treat people. And so it's less about instilling and teaching, and it's more about just being and embodying what you want your children to
Yeah.
be and embody, and then watch them
Yeah.
literally just magically be that thing, and then let them explore. Like, public school steals, like, I understand that it's a necessary thing for a lot of people, and it's a great thing for a lot
If
of
you're going to get
people,
organized about it, yeah.
but the structure of our education system right now steals childhood. It steals the natural way
Mhm.
that children learn, the natural way that children engage with one another, especially at different age levels, and like the benefits of kids, an 8-year-old talking to a 16-year-old all day.
Yeah.
And 16-year-olds learning like how to educate someone or teach, like
And to care
imparting
for kids that
wisdom.
age.
It's a little
Yeah.
Yeah.
tribe. It's like a little tribe. It's really a cool model.
Yeah.
Is you teach a 16-year-old and then they teach 6 8-year-olds, before they move
Yes.
on, and it's
And it's
so
funny
it's
too.
so right. Yeah.
And people would, I have parents. So she did go to kindergarten and first grade. So she still has a lot of town friends that are still public school. And when I was telling them about this center, that was one of the big concerns that they had. They said, "Aren't you fearful? That school is age 5 to 18. She's going to be intermixing all day with teenagers, and she's 8." And so, of course, there's this little fear like, oh, she's probably going to
Yeah.
get exposed to some language earlier than I would like, or some topics earlier than I like. But for the most part, because this is how they've all grown up, there was no bullying at
Yeah.
all. There was no
Yeah.
Yeah.
bullying. A
Yeah.
lot of the older kids took the younger kids under their wing.
Yep.
It was just, and I think too, it was on acres and acres of forest. So it's a beautiful campus. They have a couple rooms and like
Mhm.
this schoolhouse looking thing, but otherwise it's just acres of
Wow.
forest. So if there's a conflict with another kid, you're not stuck in a classroom with them for the rest of the day and every day to come. You have
Yeah.
acres of land to go play on if this kid's bugging you. You just get away.
There's
Yes.
enough
And
kids.
yeah,
It's a good sized group. It's not 10 kids
no,
and
right.
you're not stuck with them. It's like you can go hang out with somebody else. And and there's rules.
Yeah,
If there's an understanding, it's kind of building a culture. The people
yeah. Oh,
running the center kind
100%.
of have to build a culture with the kids so that
Yeah,
there's generally somebody right there to intervene if somebody gets ignorant or,
right.
to
Right. And they
to
did. And they had
not
weekly
tolerate.
meetings. So, like their
Yeah.
weekly Monday meetings, they would bring up any areas of concern that any of the students have. So it was kind of like a public forum sort of thing where they could
Yeah.
voice
Yes.
some issues that they were
Peer
having.
pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What great preparation for being out in the world around other people, how to deal with other
Hmm.
people, how not to treat other people. Golly, that's true.
It's
But
That's
yet
such
we
a lot of
still
like
get
such a
fun.
that question of,
more
is your kid socialized? How are you going to socialize them? I'm like, oh,
it's like
Yeah.
my kid's
Yeah.
socialization is more realistic than yours. Like, this is a more
Yeah.
real
right.
world
He's not afraid of
setting.
adults.
Yeah,
Oh
or
my God.
older
I know.
kids, or like there's such a hierarchy with age, um, that is instilled in us in public school and being in a grade, and I'm older than you, or this, like
Yes.
you're only around kids your age. It's like the intermingling of different age groups and different interests, being exposed to a professional musician, and not just teachers who all went to school for essentially the same things. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's such a more
Yeah.
Artificial
real world setup. Yeah.
imposed,
Yeah.
artificial. Suddenly I'm real curious about this. I'm gonna have to learn up on this.
I found as a high school teacher, it was a funny story of one of the first kind of introduction to all of this too. And prior to homeschooling my daughter now, I knew nobody that homeschooled. And to the point that I'm like such a weirdo, but like I joined all like the Facebook groups, like homeschooling groups, to try to like just watch from the sidelines. And
Yeah.
I would
Hmm.
show up for like, they'd be like, oh, we're doing a park day, like during the summer at 10 a.m. I would like bring my daughter and like we would just like play at the park and like watch these like homeschool families like, oh, like sit,
Sure,
because it was so
check them
fun.
out.
It was
Check
Yeah.
them
so
out.
foreign and to me. And so we did that. And I was
But good
still
for
working
you.
as
Like, hell yeah. There's a
I'm
lot of
like, I
people
It's
don't
who,
research.
if no one in their circle was a homeschool advocate, they would be like, no, that's weird. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to be.
right,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Good for
And so
you.
yeah,
that was the extent. It was just kind of spying on these other families at the park.
Yeah.
But then
yeah.
so
You
weird.
got to watch first. You got to be like, is this
I'm
something
like,
I
Spying
are
on
want?
this.
like, are they normal? Like, are these kids really weird? They
Yeah.
were a little weird,
Right.
but my daughter's a big weirdo too, so it's totally fine. But the big exposure came was as I was teaching high school. I ended up halfway through one of my teaching years, I got two high school students placed in my health class, both of which had been unschooled. So kind of difference, just I don't know how familiar your audience is with like homeschooling and unschooling, but essentially homeschooling is more curriculum driven. Unschooling is really, there's a wide range of what unschooling can be, but it
Hmm.
can range. Yeah. So it's very, there's like radical unschooling, which like I'm not a huge fan of, but like it's out there. And then there's
That
everyone,
sounds
there's
bad.
something,
Radical unschooling.
there's something for everyone. But essentially, so unschooling is less curriculum driven and it's more
Yeah.
student led. So
Yeah.
their parents are not explicitly teaching reading, necessarily not explicitly teaching math or
Mm.
science, but they perhaps might choose to like strew items around the house. Or if they're baking, say, oh, come on over and join me.
Yeah.
But it's more letting the kids learn through life versus having any structured curriculum.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the two kids that got plunked in my health class, both of which had never been to public school before, now they're 16, 17 years old, have no experience with public school, have no history of like being curriculum led. And now they're
That
plunked in my
doesn't
class. And
sound like fun.
I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? These two boys, it was two brothers, were the most impressive students I had ever
No
come across
kidding.
in my 8-year
No
career.
kidding. Wow.
And the thing that stood out to me most was that by the time most high school kids get to 16 and 17, there's, of course, a rare few that would still talk to me. But a lot of them are like, you're the
Yep.
teacher. And like, just no eye contact. The second the bell rang, they were out the door. They wanted nothing to do with me as their
Yeah.
teacher. You
No
know,
eye
a couple,
contact.
but really just like I was the teacher, they were the students. It's different. These kids, from the first day that they were in my classroom, the bell would ring. They would stay after. They would have conversations with me. They were making eye contact. They were super personable, and I'm like, oh my God, these
Very
kids are
poised, very
just
composed.
different. So we had
Yeah.
the parent
Hmm.
night, and their mom came in and she said, "Oh, I'm so and so. You know, my two boys are in your class." And I probably like jumped right on this woman. I'm like, oh my God, like I've been thinking about homeschooling my own daughter, and like I have so many questions. And she's very like, nice to meet you. And I'm like, okay, like after, like,
Right.
we're now best friends.
Hi,
Um,
I'm Amy.
Right.
right, I don't even think I said my name. Um, like lots of questions for you. So I said, after this parent night's over, I said, would you be open for me sending you an email and meeting for coffee at some point? I'm really looking to homeschool my daughter, and I just don't know where to begin. So now we're like such good friends. But
Right. You
it
don't
was from
know it
that
yet, but
moment that
we're
I
about to be
brought her.
besties.
Pretty much, I said that, and I'm like, your kids are so impressive, so impressive. And, you know, we ended up talking about what she did. And that's when I had first learned about unschooling and kind of her philosophy and that philosophy of unschooling. It was really cool. And watching those kids for the next couple of years in their high school career was interesting too, in that they were both brilliant. One of them loves reading, the other one's super strong in math. But the one particularly that was strong in math would get in trouble all the time and get low marks because he wasn't showing his work. And now,
Hmm.
since his mom and I are friends, we would chat about this. And he's getting C's and D's. And she goes, he's brilliant in math. And he does it all in his head and writes
Yeah.
it down.
Yeah.
And when I asked her about that, she goes, yeah, because our math was always in the car. She goes, I would shoot a math problem out to him in the car as I was driving. He would figure it out, work it out, see it in his mind, work it out, and say the answer. So he just wasn't trained
Wow.
in how to explicitly show the steps that were going on.
Yeah.
And because of that, was getting the answers right all the time, but receiving low
He
marks.
was well, and he was
I
having to
hated showing
learn
my work.
the structure and the
Yeah.
curriculum. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My brain
That's
worked
another skill.
faster than my pencil could write. And so showing my work slowed me down from like, I would lose the
Yes.
answer because I would do it so fast in my head, especially like trigonometry. I could flip flop the numbers and the X's and the things and be like, and like get an answer in my head. And then I had to go back on tests and then write out, like I would go through and answer everything. And then I would go back through and write out the work that we had to show. Because if I did it while I was going through it, it literally slowed me down and messed me up.
It's
Right.
like writing a police report. Well, first the lady came around the corner, and then the other car came from this direction at this
Yeah.
speed. And yeah, it's no fun trying to recreate the math.
What
Yeah.
you already know and what,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So there was a lot of exposures like that. And again, once the timing was right, thankfully all the pieces were in place. I was able to pull her, and then we've been homeschooling since then.
Well, and with that transition of you did you pull your daughter out at the same time that you left teaching to start your businesses? So you continued teaching.
Yes, that was
Like,
painful.
so you pulled her out, and then how long did it take for you
rebel.
to be like,
Yeah.
I'm leaving this space. This isn't for me.
That's right.
Yeah, that was hard. That was hard. And I actually was trying to, it was almost a little bit of hiding parts of myself, because how
Sure.
do I show
sure,
up
yeah.
every single day in this profession as a teacher when I really don't agree with the direction that things
You
are
are.
going, to the
Right.
point that I pulled my own kid out.
Right? My
And I'm
kid
like,
doesn't go here, but
Yeah, completely rejecting everything. That's going to raise eyebrows.
yeah, so I kind of was, a couple people within my department knew I homeschooled, and my direct overhead boss knew. But again, I was a single mom. I couldn't quit my job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now it's like, okay, so I would joke with her. I'm like, baby, I'm like, I freed you. I'm like, now I just got to free myself.
That's
So
right.
free the
I
kid first.
set you
So it was
free, and now
about,
I got to work on. Yeah. Ugh.
yeah.
That's so powerful.
And it was, again, it was just, I put the intention out there, and I said, you know what, I'm going to work on getting myself out as soon as I can, but it's not possible yet. So it was about another 2.5 years before I was able to leave and start my own business.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's still
Yeah.
pretty quick. Well done.
Well, so
Yeah.
how did you, so
I
you
wanted it.
left, you left
Nice,
to be
nicely
a
done.
full-time, you started with fitness, right? Fitness for, did you
Mhm.
start with fitness for moms specifically? Or did you just leave to be
Yeah.
a full-time trainer?
So I worked.
And
So
what about dads?
there's enough in this world for you guys.
That's sexist. I'll be
No,
back.
you know what? The honest answer is, when I first started my business, I would take anyone that wanted
Right.
a trainer, because
Right.
I needed
If
clients.
you will pay me, I will train you.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. Right. And as a trainer, we're skilled to train any age, any gender, of course. But once I started developing my own business, then it's when I started really being able to niche down a little bit, and not only being able to select who I wanted to work with, but I was finding that the more I was putting content out there, the more I was attracting my ideal clients anyways, because
Yeah.
they saw themselves in me. I was also juggling
Yeah.
career and child and having to, go through all that. So I think you pull those people in.
Yep.
You get that. That's the non-tangibles we were
Yes.
talking about before, right?
Yes.
The non-scientific
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Well, and so much of personal training, like hairdressing or anything, is, yes, it's the skill of fitness, but it's also the rapport. And I
Yeah.
would find I would have these, guys come in as clients, and I'm like, how is that sports team doing?
Yeah,
With cars.
that's right. How's your car running?
Right, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like an idiot. Like, I don't even know what to talk about. Whereas with the moms, like, it was so easy, because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God, your kid was sick last night. Okay, well, what else happened? How much did you
Yeah.
do before 10 a.m.? Okay, me too.
Yeah.
So it
Well, and
was
being
just
able
an
to
easier flow.
serve, like when you have things in common, you're able to see where that person is coming from, and you can serve them so much better in their training
Yes.
as well. Like,
Yeah.
and you
Yes.
you not only are meeting physical needs, but mental and emotional support as
Huge.
well. And training is fucking mentally difficult. Like a lot of
Motivation, yeah.
emotions come up when you're doing hard work, like physical work. And so of course you want to
Mhm.
work with people where you can relate and have empathy and be like, my kid has
Yeah.
been sick
Yeah.
too. And like, let's be in this together.
Yeah.
Um, when we've talked before this, about, I want to spotlight your philosophy of, because I think this is another thing that draws the right people to you, draws the right clients to you, is specifically that your goal was to help moms and women, and you being a single mom from the start, knowing exactly how hard it is, exactly how time consuming it is, exactly how like what a juggling act it can be to try and balance like being a mom and being an entrepreneur. Like you you knew for you that your physical workout time was a level of self-care, physical care that helped you show up as a mom or as an entrepreneur
Mhm.
healthier and more capable of playing all of those roles with that foundation under
Mhm.
you. Um, and I
Yeah.
feel like that has served as well, like has served the people that you work with.
Yeah, and
That
of course, I have not
philosophy.
always been perfect.
No, nobody's
But
perfect.
on the times that I was doing it, I
Yeah.
you're a better parent. And I
Yeah.
think I was lucky in that
Yeah.
I grew up with fitness. And from a
Yeah.
very early age, my dad was coaching our sports and he was enrolling us
Yeah.
in road races. So it's always been something that has been weaved throughout my life. And it's always been something that I knew I could go to
Yeah.
when things were hard. And it was a stress reliever more than anything else.
Hmm.
But what I find is interesting is now training women that was not their upbringing and actually
Yeah.
convincing them. I know that it seems like everything in your life is blowing up and you have not a second of time, but this extra thing that's going to take more time is going to still be super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about that in other podcasts, other
Yeah.
situations too. Where I saw a thing the other day where a person was talking about fitness, saying, "Well, there's um, heart attacks and high blood pressure and there are health problems, but on the average, a person who exercises is going to outlive a person who does not exercise and stay active."
Mm-hmm.
That
Hmm.
there's and making that part of your makeup is just better all around. And we're always
Yeah.
talking about parent heal thyself. You can't pass along things you have not learned yourself. So anything that promotes yourself being a more whole person is not selfish. It's making you a better teacher, a better
Yeah.
role model for your
Yeah.
kids. And yeah, yeah.
They
And
watch
I
what we
enjoy
do. They
and
watch
I
what we do.
enjoyed your explanation about men too. That's the best explanation I've ever heard
It was just
about
like
why
startling.
guys don't go to girls' exercise classes. They just don't fit. Wouldn't it be great if you could teach the guys to talk like that?
Yes, it would.
Share
Maybe I
and
wouldn't be
quit
single.
stuffing things. And yeah, that's right. Exactly. Ooh, there you go. Make it a meat market. Then I
Right.
don't know about that.
Mm, mm.
No, there'd be some advantage if you could get
Maybe
guys
I
in
should
there
start
too.
training guys.
There you go.
But it
That's
That's
not
how
but it
gonna
would
happen.
be
you'll find
but it
one.
would it wouldn't be the physical. It wouldn't be the exercise thing though. It would be the
Yeah.
socialization part
Yeah, I
would
think
be
we'll
the
keep them
training.
separate. I think it's a better idea.
Yeah, that might be a better room. Yeah,
But that physical foundation too is like in our, I don't think I've mentioned the pyramid in a really long time, but I have the relational parenting, relational developmental pyramid that I created. And at the
Mhm.
we
bottom
need to get it behind
is,
you.
I know I need to, or I'll
We
need
need a
to,
graphic or something.
yeah, get a graphic up on the screen, of physical needs being the foundation of our human existence, right? And we can't really do
Mhm.
anything else well unless our physical needs have been met. And so, like, I teach parents that when your child is born, their primary needs are physical, right? They need to eat, they need to sleep, they need to be cleaned up, and they need to be held and touched and feel secure and safe and all of those things. And then we can move up into the mental and emotional wellness, the cognitive, the social, all of those things. But if our physical needs aren't met, and even toddlers, I mean, you see this in toddlers, you see this in yourself. If you get hangry,
Yeah,
you're not your best self. Like for
yeah,
most people, some kind of workout, physical movement, physical fitness, taking a walk, it like nature, meeting our physical needs, making sure we're well nourished, all of those things, that is the foundation of our well-being. And
Mm-hmm.
then you become better, better mentally, more healthy emotionally, able to regulate your nervous system, etc. And then you can give those things to your children. Then you can
Yeah.
offer co-regulation. Oh, my toddler's freaking out and screaming. Okay, well, I'm regulated,
Mhm.
so now I can help regulate them. But if you're not regulated, if you're not taking care of yourself, when chaos occurs in your environment, you're going to lose it too. And you're just going to feed into and make everything
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
So like parenting requires you to be able to like take care of yourself, establish that physical foundation, that health, that mental and emotional health to stand on, to parent from.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah.
So I think it's such a huge support for the women that you work with if they happen to be moms as well, like to not only encourage that piece of it, and whatnot, but it's also like it's a form of like you deserve this too. You deserve to take care of yourself,
Yeah.
not
And
just
Yeah.
be
that's the
taking
biggest
care of
objection. I'm
everybody
going to tell you
else.
that right now.
Yeah.
There's the guilt, and I'm sure it's people know, as I'm not saying something that's new here, is there's a guilt among a lot of moms for taking time out for themselves.
Yep. Or
Exactly.
spending money on themselves,
Yes.
investing in
Yeah.
themselves.
Or
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
Yep, the whole thing. And they're like, well, I should really just be paying attention to my kid. Your kid's going to like you a whole lot better is if you take care of yourself.
Right.
Your kid
Right.
doesn't want you cranky 3 hours when they could have
Right.
you 2 hours, but good.
And they're
You
going to
know?
learn
Yes.
that too. If they see you, especially if I would think if they see the transition between
Yes.
mom used to not be so regulated. I love that
Hmm.
word regulated. Yeah. If your kid notices that transition from unregulated to
Mm-hmm.
regulated and why, then that's, hey, you've just taught your kid something important.
Yeah.
And then doing it every day after that. It's good to have the moment, but then it's the
Yeah.
day to day. Okay, let's
Sustained
keep this
habits. Yes.
going. That's the real challenge a lot of times.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that comes for a lot of people. Of course, people start, uh, most people start with me in a personal training capacity from wanting to change something about themselves physically. I want to gain
Yeah.
muscle. I want to lose weight. I
Mm-hmm.
want to, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But the people that stick long term are the people that understand and see that is such the surface level of it. That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
really not what it's about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And once you get that, I think that's when you become a lifetime
You get so you
Yeah.
fitness
miss it.
person.
You
Yes.
get so you miss
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
When you just you have to make yourself, at least for me, you have to make yourself do it for a while, and
Yeah.
then if you hang in long enough, however long it takes you to make it a habit,
Yeah.
and if you hang in
Yeah.
long enough, then all of a sudden it's like, oh God, I don't feel I need to go for a run, or
Yeah.
whatever.
And how do you make it
Yes.
enjoy? And that's the big question too. How do you make it enjoyable is what I would always encourage people
Yeah.
is if it's painful from the start, if you are going way above where you should from the start, nobody wants to put themselves through pain.
Yeah.
So
Right.
how do we find those things that you enjoy now and then build upon them so that it becomes something that is a
Yeah.
lifelong habit for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss karate. I gotta.
Do it.
I've been a
Go back.
dumpster for a while. I need to go back to doing something like
Dumpster.
that. You hate going for a while. So we noticed that in the car riding back and forth. The kids and I all did karate together. Jenny and I. It's like we were always grumbling on the way there, but we were all like, okay, we did it, yay, we accomplished something on the way home.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. It's also like physical health is like, that's just one way that it feeds your mental health is like, you feel accomplished. You feel like you're like, oh, I did the hard thing. Like, yeah, it's hard. Yeah. Like I didn't
Hmm.
want to do it. Like it wasn't like, oh, this is going to be enjoyable, but not everything in life is enjoyable. So if
Yeah.
you can force yourself to train through something that's not particularly your favorite thing, but you know that on the other side of it, it's going to be amazing, you're going to
Yeah.
feel so much better, then you're able to navigate your life with that mindset as well. Of
Yeah.
like when hard things happen in life, it's like, well, I don't necessarily want to address this, but I know that on the other side of it, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
I'm going to be
Yeah.
so much better, or my kid is going to be so much better, or, whatever. And it literally makes like you live in your head your entire life. Like all you have is this.
Hmm.
right? Your environment is
Yeah.
your environment. You don't know what's going to happen out here, but what you have is this
Yeah.
to live with for the rest of your life. And if this is
Yeah.
miserable every single day, no matter what amazingness is going on in your environment, you're not going to enjoy it, not to its fullest capacity or as often as you could be because you're pissed off here or you're
Yeah.
sad
Yeah.
or you feel like shit. Yeah.
Yeah. It
Hmm.
affects everything. Yeah. Rewarding is the word I use. It's not fun, going and
Right.
beating on each other at karate and hard physical exercise. It's not exactly fun, but it's rewarding is what keeps you coming back.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, the ability to go, yeah, okay, I can get over the hump of having to take the time and
Yeah.
make the
Hmm.
arrangements and or the expense or whatever is the obstacle. And but I'm glad I do it and I keep doing it. There has
The
to be some
Yeah.
ROI,
reward.
the return on investment
Yeah.
is what
There you go.
matters.
There you go.
Yeah.
Speaking
There
like a
you go.
business owner.
Right.
There you go.
Speaking of which,
Hey.
I didn't even mean to do that, but you started originally as an entrepreneur, as a personal trainer, and you have now transitioned kind of naturally because through people seeking your advice into a digital entrepreneurship coach. Yes?
Yeah, so yeah, so very much true. I have been personal training. Like I said, first got certified in 2011. So when I was doing it when my daughter was little, did that, jumped into teaching for a good chunk, been back personal training for the last couple of years running my own business. And I have known for, again, as long as I can remember, that I really, really, really want to have a fully remote business. And
Yeah.
I love traveling. My daughter loves traveling. We just got back actually in May from Costa Rica. That was our last little trip,
Oh, cool.
but
Nice.
beautiful. And I'm like, I want a job that I can work from anywhere. Like it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
something it's just always been a calling of mine. And especially since she doesn't have a traditional school schedule. So
Yeah.
we don't have to have 2 weeks off here like we can vacation whenever we want.
Whenever
We
you
could go for
want.
a month if we felt like it and live
Any,
somewhere because
anywhere
yes,
with decent internet,
yeah, which like
right?
there's so many places now, right?
Ubiquitous. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of over the last year, I've really been having this pull of, her schedule is not holding us back. Her curriculum can be done from anywhere. I'm
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
one, again, I'm the one with
Wow.
my career now that's
Yeah.
holding back the opportunities for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So again, just like when she was younger, just like when I knew that I wanted to homeschool, I said, okay, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm going to put the intention out there. I'm going to start putting pieces in place to make this happen with the goal of 2024. And I've had this for the whole year. The goal is to start 2024 fully digital, right? So
Okay.
nothing more in person. So I said, okay, so now I need to just start thinking that's the end goal. How do I backtrack? So I have invested in business courses and I've taken a lot of business courses over my life, but really doubled down on them lately. And specifically looking at how to take what I was doing personal training and make it digital.
Okay.
There's certainly a lot, and I've, looked at other companies that are doing this. There's certainly a lot of people that are doing fitness in the online space. There's also a lot of objections. So a lot of people, especially people that I've
Mm.
talked to, they said like, yeah, that's great, but I'm nervous that I'm not doing it right, or I just want to actually have you there, or I won't show up at the gym if I don't have an appointment with you. So that's
Sometimes it's
great.
it's the people, like you said, it's the
Yeah.
reinforcement of the
Yeah.
people. Sure.
Right. So there's been a lot of stuff that's making it tough. But I've continued to say, okay, well, I know that this is the direction that I'm looking to go. Let me just keep putting the pieces in place. But the
Hmm.
thing, again, we talked about at the beginning of this conversation is there's a knowing that's
Yeah.
inside you. And what I have found happening over the last 6 months as I've been transitioning to digital is it's almost feeling like as I'm building out those systems, as I'm building out those frameworks, it's like I'm putting one foot on the gas while simultaneously having the other foot on the brake.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's been this like, and like in my head, I'm going, well, this is what I went to school for. This is what I'm trained in. This is all of the things that my skill set is. Of course, this is what my digital business is going to be. It's going to be in fitness. This is what I do.
Yeah.
But there's just this, and the only way I can describe it, just this feeling of like, nope, that's not it. And
Yeah.
I was trying to ignore it, I guess, a little bit because, I don't know, logic. I guess we're trying to just say, this is what I do. And was just kind of forcing it forward. And then over the last month or so, I had 4 people now reach out to me and say, I've kind of been watching you from the sidelines growing your own business. And I
Like
start,
you did.
right. I'm like, look at creeping on me now.
Right?
So people, well, that's, what, side story, and I'll finish the story, but side story is we don't know always who's watching us, which is
People are
interesting. You might think
watching.
that we're
Yeah.
putting,
Yeah.
especially with this content, with the podcast, you're thinking, oh my gosh, like nobody's, liking or commenting or whatever gets in our own
Yeah.
head. There are people watching and taking it in.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that lesson
And we
was
would
learned
like for
quickly
those
over the
people
last
to
month.
be more brave, please, and share the show. No, I'm kidding.
Hit the like button,
Hit
share
the like
button.
button.
No,
They're gonna
right.
convince themselves. They're doing research.
Yeah.
Leave them alone.
Right. So
That's
they're there.
okay.
And
I'm
so
teasing.
we know you
I'm
guys
a
are there. We
watcher.
know you
I'm a
guys are there
watcher.
watching us right now. Oh
Yeah.
God, I just jumped right in. But so over the last, 2 years that I've been growing this, over the last month or so, I've had 4 people individually separate, not connected in any way, reach out to me and say, hey, like I've been watching you grow your own business and it seems like you're doing really well. I'm looking to start my own business too. Would you mind just jumping on a call with me? Can I just pick your brain on a few things? Like, I don't
Yeah.
even know where to start. So
Yeah.
now this happened the first time and I'm like, oh my God, of course. Like, yeah, let me just figure it out. We'll schedule it in. I jumped on a call. At the end of that call, I'm like, oh my gosh, that felt amazing. And the girl that I was speaking to on that call, at the end of the call was like, oh my gosh, Amy, like, thank you so much. I feel like I have so much clarity in where I'm going. I feel like I was super stuck before, but now I have like a plan of
Yeah.
action going
Yeah.
forward. What can I do? How can I, repay you for this? And me now, I'm not thinking this is my business. It was not even crossing my mind. I'm like, the repayment is go out and be successful. Like I'm doing
Yeah.
this just because it's something that's made a difference in my life. If I can share it, wonderful.
Yeah.
Great. That happened again. Next call. Can I pick your brain? Sure. Okay. Have the call. Oh my God, that was amazing. Like, how could it? So now 4 times this has happened. And I'm not such a quick learner, I guess. This is the point of this story. After 4 times, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is the thing.
You're
Yeah.
not being very businessy.
So,
Right?
right. So me and I'm like, oh my gosh, thinking I'm just like,
How
just
do you do
random.
that? Yeah.
Right. And I don't think it crossed my mind because as much as I have the learned experience of growing my own business, as much as I've taken my share of business courses, I think in my own head, I was like, yeah, but I'm a personal trainer. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm trained in
Yeah.
education.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't go to business school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
You
I've grown
get
my own business.
Right. But you've done it.
Right. So I think it just never crossed my mind until I had that number of people reach out to me and say,
Yeah.
can you help me with this?
Yeah.
And the help was successful, that
Yeah.
it made me go, oh, this was the missing piece. So the whole time I'm pumping the gas and the other foot was the brake was because I was going down a path that I was not meant to be on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I still have one-to-one in-person clients and I'll still keep that for the ones that are truly aligned with, my values and what their goals
Mhm.
are, but
Mhm.
absolutely starting to now open up that channel for digital entrepreneurship in order
Yeah.
to be a coach or to be a mentor to people that are looking to grow their own business as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Monetize being a mentor because that's what it is. It's there's an old joke about a guy with an old engine that wouldn't start, and they brought back the old mechanic, and he found he had a little hammer up here, and he went over and he hits the engine in just the right place, and gets it started. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, and sends him a bill for like $10,000. It's like, no, it's not the hammer blow you paid me for. It's knowing where to hit the
It's
engine
the 30
that you're
years of
Exactly.
paying me for.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That I
Exactly.
knew the one spot to hit. Yeah.
yeah. And we all
That's
know what
business
happens
school
when you start
101.
putting things in place. So look forward to. I'm gonna watch you. I'm gonna
You
subscribe
should.
to your stuff, and may need that service because I'm finding that to be true too. Is you think of yourself in channels or in lanes, and I
Yeah.
think the
Mhm.
school thing we were talking about, that's kind of, you're going to go be a factory worker. Our school system is kind of arranged towards reproducing reproducible parts, so, and in the kind of learning center that your daughter's going
Yeah.
to is like, what do I want to do next? It teaches you to be a lot more flexible, I think,
Right. And
and
that you're
another
not one
value.
thing.
Yeah,
And
Like,
to
I think so much of us
think for
define ourselves as
yourself.
one thing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right. All of
Yes.
us are multifaceted. And that's beautiful too, is all of the people at that center, they teach skill sets, not that they necessarily had huge, education on, but they have life
exactly.
education on, and they have skills that are transferable to these kids, which
Yeah.
is so cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Education is great, but boy, if you're a musician, if you can pick up a guitar or a piano, I guess you can't pick up a piano, but if you can pick up a musical instrument
If they see me
and
for
A
personal
very tiny
training, then they
piano.
might be able
yeah,
to.
there you go. That's right.
Plug for that business. Hey.
Right?
The great ad.
Right?
I'll make that for the guys. You can pick
Right?
up pianos.
Amy's like, well, I can pick up a piano. I know most people can't pick up
I
pianos,
don't
but
know
I
about you,
can. With
That's
proper
funny.
form and a few weeks of training, you could do it.
You
you can
too.
do it. You too can pick up a piano.
Oh my God, that's your next reel is you lifting a piano.
Right?
Yeah, that's funny.
If
So
nothing, it
funny.
would be a good little animation in
It'd
a
be cute.
digital
Yeah.
space or something like that.
Mhm.
Some little girl picking up, 8-year-old girl picking up a piano, or at least one end of a piano.
There you go.
Right.
This has been really enlightening.
Yeah,
This
I
is
love
good.
it.
I don't know if we entertained anybody else, but I've had a lot of fun. It's been good to meet you, Amy.
Right. We
Thank
kind of
you.
show up
Thank
to
you. You as well.
entertain ourselves, and then hope other people find things
They
entertaining.
want to join the party.
Well, if
No,
we don't like it, I think there's zero chance anybody else will like it. If at least
Yeah.
we like it, then at least
Somebody
at least
likes
two
it.
people liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 people.
Well,
would be able to get.
Well, and hopefully, in reality, we want parents to be able to have access to content that is tangible and can be used at home, to ideas and philosophies that maybe they've never been introduced to and want to think about,
Yeah.
or start exploring, and then to also hear real conversations with real parents who are navigating the world. And there are homeschooling parents, there are unschooling parents, there are public school parents, there are private school parents, and there's a million different facets to being human, to being a parent, to how, what you learned and what you experienced growing up, and what parts of that you want to take and keep, and what parts of that you want to undo and do differently with your kids. And hopefully, we're inspiring people to choose their path intentionally, to, what was the phrasing you used, Amy? By design.
Yeah,
By
and
design.
that was kind of what you're.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
that's the conversation that we had prior to hitting record too. Is like so much of the picture, and it's so much of I think what drives me, and it's living in alignment. So the phrase that I always use is that we're creating a life by design, not by default. And we had
Yes.
chatted, and I shared that story with you guys too about how it's so easy to fall away from that life of design.
It is.
And before you realize that you think you're living your life by design, but you end up at a place that was so different from where you thought you were going to be.
Yeah.
And it happens slowly. And that's the scary part. So a lot of the work that I do with women, whether it's personal training or now through business coaching, is figuring out, what does your life by design look like?
Yeah.
And how can we get you there? For all of you, if your audience members, if we have former teachers in here or current teachers, and that's right. So they'll get this one. It's what I wasn't doing in my own life over the last 2 years of my business was formative evaluation. So within the education space, right? So we know within the education space, there's a summative evaluation. We're checking things out at the end. That's going to be our big test. That's our unit test. But are we performing those formative evaluations along the way to see, yes, we have this goal that we're looking to achieve, but are we actually on track, and how are we checking it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was where that story that I shared with you guys came up, was that I wasn't doing that. I had the goal in mind of, I want to build this business so that I can have location freedom, so that I can have financial freedom, so that all of these things can be put in place. And in my head, that was because, yes, I want that, but I also wanted that for my daughter. And I think a lot of that, which is a deeper conversation, maybe for another time, is that as a single mom from the start, not only did I not know anyone that homeschooled, I didn't know anyone else that was a single parent. So I became a single parent very unexpectedly, and went, oh my God, so now I'm pregnant with my daughter, and I knew I was going to be a single parent. And so, of course, like everybody, I'm like, start Googling, which is like the worst thing to do when you have a problem, like get off Google. So I was like Googling single parent, and like, they're like, your kid's going to be doomed. Like, you're going to be on assistance, and their kids are going to you have all these issues. And now that was my only perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now it's like, part of, I think, was my motivation for sure is that making sure that I and she are not a statistic of all of those things, and proving to her
Hmm.
that, you know what, yeah, we've been just the two of us from the beginning, but we
Making
can
it
do
work.
it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's where that formative piece in that story that I shared with you guys comes in place, where it's, I hustled. I think
Yeah.
like any of us, when we start a business, I hustled.
It's
And
right.
we
Yeah.
had chatted about, for like a year straight, I was like head down on the computer,
Yeah.
working super hard. And what we had chatted about was that moment for me that came up where my daughter came over. And so this is like, again, just reveal how deep in like the hustle mode I got into, and what I
Hmm.
hope your audience learns from my lesson and doesn't do themselves. Was she came over to me and she said, Mom, can we play? And now I'm busting my butt to create this business for her and for us, to give us this life that we're looking for. And she came over and she said, can we play?
Yeah.
And this is a Monday afternoon. I said, oh my God, yeah, like, great, we will. Open up my Google Calendar, search through like disgustingly jam-packed schedule that pretty much didn't leave me like a minute to pee or eat.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, looking. And I'm like, okay, it looks like Thursday at 3. So without a thought being given to it, I turned to her and I said,
Oh.
okay, Thursday at 3:00. How's that sound? Like, we'll play Legos then. And she, sweet kid, goes, okay, Mom, and turned and walked away. And seeing the back, yes, seeing the back of that beautiful child's head walking away,
Yeah.
I felt like Mike Tyson just came into my house and just sucker punched me in the gut.
A moment. Yeah. Ooh.
And I think kids they make you have these wake up calls. And I said, oh my God, with the intention of creating something for her, I just created a life that was not by design, that for sure was by default, because I wasn't doing those checking in points that I encourage my clients to do now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is I wasn't checking in. And I got to a point that my life looked very different from what my intention was.
Yeah.
And it took that moment for me to realize that. And at that point, we had discussed, that was when I said, I don't even care. Like, every bit of work can wait. I shut my computer. I walked over to her and I said, you know what, baby, like, I just found out I have some time right now. Why don't we play?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was in that moment, kneeling on the floor with her playing Legos, that I made a promise to myself and I made a promise to her in my head. It's going to be different. It can't be that way. We have to be able to build a business without it looking like that,
Yeah.
That's a really
So
beautiful
many.
parenting moment.
Yeah.
They
You
wake you
know,
up, those kids. They have a
they
funny way of
do.
just
They
making
do.
you
Oh,
realize all
If
the
you
goodness.
things,
listen,
don't they?
there are hundreds of people who would have had
Well,
that
yeah.
exact same moment,
Yeah.
and they would have left the penciling in. They might have felt a pang of guilt, but been like, well, that's just
Yeah.
how it is right now, and kept
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
versus like checking the hustle, checking like, yes, you have to hustle to build a business. Yes, it takes grunt work. Yes, it takes time away. But
Yeah.
for you to have children and to pencil them in 3 days later for
Unacceptable.
playtime,
Learning
like,
Yeah.
experience. Yeah.
that's not balance. That's not
Yeah.
healthy. That's not, and like,
And it
yes, you
was,
might
yeah, no.
spend time building something and you'll have to devote more time to that thing. But it shouldn't be 100% ever. It shouldn't be so much of your time that you're abandoning your relationships. Like, your
Yeah.
relationships are what make
It's
life worth
boundaries, right?
living.
It's boundaries, which are
Yeah.
tough for people, of course, but they're so essential.
Yeah. You've got to
Yeah.
have
Because the
that
to-do list,
check.
we all know,
Yeah.
the to-do list never
It'll take
ends.
over your
Whether
life.
you're
Yeah.
a parent,
Yeah.
whether you're an entrepreneur, we think, and I think
Yeah.
that was my mentality too. And I'm sure, others have felt this way too, is I think I was coming at it with the idea that if I just keep hustling fast enough,
Yeah.
I'm going to eventually get to the end of the to-do list
Yeah.
and then have time.
Which you won't.
But
Someday.
There's no end.
as quick as we check them off,
Yeah.
the more things come on. So if we're
Yep.
not planning that break time in there, it's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
tough. It's tough. And that's the essential skill. I mean, we start off with good first principles, work hard,
Yeah.
be really organized. You were executing, okay, this is great, until something comes in from left field that might be a higher principle that you might be
Yeah.
ignoring.
Mhm.
It's like, well, nobody's going to die if I don't go play Legos for a couple hours,
Right.
or
Right.
however long it takes to,
Yeah.
minister to my daughter, to parent my daughter,
Mhm.
my child. And it's a struggle. We know that. That's we all get off track, and it's good to watch videos like this, if nothing else, just to remind ourselves it's okay to have a moment and,
Go play with your kids. Everyone listening right
go
now, go
play with
play
your
with your
kids.
kids.
That's
Right.
And
right.
they're only that little for so long. And
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like work will always be there. The
Yeah.
to-do
That's
list
a
will
high.
always be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not always
Yeah.
going to be little.
Your
Growth
kid's
rarely
memory, you
comes. It's
only have
also good to get into those. It's good to get in those situations because growth comes from pain. It's all these
Yeah.
moments are
Right.
always like, I shouldn't have done that kind of moments, So
But then
Yeah.
it sticks.
Yeah.
And you're
it
like,
changes you. Yeah. And it
yeah.
sticks
And
for
you're like,
sure.
oh, this has to change.
that's what
Done.
makes it stick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was
Yeah.
about a year ago, actually, is when that happened. And to that day, I will tell you, I have a hard stop every single day. And I actually set an alarm on my phone that has this like beautiful little chiming noise. Alarm that goes off every single day, which is my 15-minute wrap up, close out, make my little to-do list for the next day, close out, shut everything down. Because it needed to be that
Yeah.
clear for me. Otherwise, with my own person, I would just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time. You have to time box.
Yeah.
I'm the
'Cause that's
same
the
way. I'll
finite
just
thing. We
keep
can't
going
make
to
more time,
bedtime.
right?
If I get
Yeah.
hyper focused.
Yeah. And then you wake up and you start it again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you feel bad in the morning, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I would love, every time we have people on, I'm like, I could talk to you for at least another hour.
Yeah, we got to schedule
But
another
we
one.
have
Schedule another
to,
opportunity.
yeah, we have to end
Wrap
it.
it up.
I also really have to pee.
Well,
Sorry.
thanks for that information.
Tell everyone where they can find you, follow you, etc.
Yeah, so the best place to find me, I recently just started a new page on Instagram. Instagram has always been my number one hangout spot when it comes to social media. So that page now, it's just my first and part of my last name. So it's AMYKUPH. So it's at Amy
Awesome.
Koof. And that's on Instagram. That's the best way. I'm there every day.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll have your website and everything linked in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for being here with us, for taking time out of your Friday to be here and chat with our audience. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it as well.
All right, everybody. Let's see. Happy parenting and good luck out there.
I love it. Thank you.
Bye,
Take care.
everybody.
Bye. Well, did you learn anything new? Or have you heard all of this before? Do you agree with us? Disagree with us? Have a question? We want to see you in our inbox or via the Patreon page in the show notes. Tap on either link to send us your feedback, share your own parenting story, or support our mission of providing a connected community for all parents. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you loved this episode, click on that little star and give us 5 of them so we can get visible to other parents who are looking for us. This is your weekly reminder. Parents, you already have everything you need inside of you. You are a strong, loving, capable parent. And here, you are never alone. I'll see you next week.